I try to remember to do things that make his life a little easier.
I asked, what's your favorite childhood memory? And I think that reveals a lot about who we are deep inside, and the things that make us feel at home.
America fell in love with Erin Napier's soft colors, steady voice, and small-town charm. On Hometown, she built dream houses and a picture of peace. But off-camera, life wasn't as simple. Behind every calm reveal was exhaustion, fear, and heartbreak. A private health battle, a wave of public scrutiny. The weight of fame presses against real pain. This isn't a story about ratings. It's about survival, about holding a family, a town, and a dream together when the world only sees the smile. The illness you didn't see. For years, Erin Napier appeared on screen as the picture of calm. Her gentle southern drawl, delicate color palettes, and quiet optimism made Hometown one of HGTV's most comforting shows. But what viewers didn't see, what cameras never captured, was that Erin was fighting a private, invisible battle that changed her life long before she became a TV star. Long before the lights, the cameras, and the fame, Erin struggled with a mysterious illness that went undiagnosed for nearly a decade. It began in her early 20s, years before Hometown even existed. She would wake up with stabbing stomach pain, nausea, and fatigue that came without warning and left her weak for days. Doctor after doctor failed to give her answers. Some brushed it off as anxiety. Others told her to rest more. But deep down, Erin knew something was seriously wrong. It wasn't until years later that doctors discovered the truth. Erin was suffering from a perforated appendix that had ruptured and healed itself repeatedly over the years, leaving behind scar tissue that caused chronic inflammation and pain. For 10 years, her body had been fighting silent infections while she continued to live her life as if everything was normal. The damage was so severe that surgeons eventually had to remove her appendix and clean the surrounding tissue. The recovery was long and painful, but it finally gave her relief and a new perspective on how fragile health really is. The incident left a deep mark on her. Erin once remarked that being sick made her live slow and gentle, to spot beauty in the tranquil moments, and to take delight in little things like a stroll through Laurel's quiet streets, or a day spent drawing in her kitchen. While others regarded her vintage designs as simply a matter of taste, her closest friends realized they were her remedy. The calming tones, the retro materials, the cozy lighting. These were her means of establishing serenity in a world that had once been like turmoil in her own body. Despite the fact that she had recovered, the emotional price was still very high. Erin fought anxiety for many years, which was basically one of the negative consequences of staying in survival mode for such a long time. She became very frank about taking therapy and medication, as she departed from the polished image usually expected of HGTV stars. During her interviews, she likened anxiety to a storm you cannot forecast, not even on the brightest day. She also revealed that design was her anchor, the only spot where she could generate stability and beauty when her mind was so scattered. While most of the viewers remained unaware of her suffering when Hometown finally appeared on the screen, the long, painful, and uncertain nights had already turned her into the lady who was on the show, a designer who thought every old, regardless of how ruined, house could be brought back to life. Erin's identification with decayed spaces came from a very personal source. She had experienced the process of getting a makeover from the inside out. She was sick and was never labeled with it, but it made her perceive the world differently. She built it back up, though, one brick, one brushstroke, and one tiny act of kindness at a time. But even when the body begins to heal, the outside world can turn harsh. And for Erin Napier, the spotlight would bring a new kind of pressure she could never have prepared for. When the spotlight turns harsh, Fame looks warm from the outside. The lights, the applause, the recognition. But for Erin Napier, it came with a cold edge. When Hometown first premiered, she and her husband Ben became instant favorites. Viewers loved their easy chemistry, their southern charm, and their devotion to small-town restoration. Yet, as the show's audience grew, so did the scrutiny. And what began as admiration slowly turned into something more invasive. Erin has said that Fame felt like a door opening that you couldn't close again. Suddenly, her designs weren't just being admired, they were being dissected. Each episode brought waves of comments, not all of them kind. People on social media began criticizing everything from the colors she chose to the clothes she wore. Every photo she posted could ignite a debate. The soft pastel shades that once symbolized calm to her were labeled boring. Her choice to preserve old wood or leave a wall imperfect was called lazy. But the worst part wasn't about her. It was about the families whose homes she restored. During Hometown Takeover in Sebring, Florida, Erin opened up about how cruel the internet could be. Some viewers left vulgar or mocking comments about the finished houses, the very homes where real families lived. They see the criticism, Erin said. They read it. Those words stick. What was meant to be a joyful celebration of renewal sometimes turned into public ridicule, and Erin took that personally. She had always seen design as an act of care. Seeing it twisted into cruelty felt like a betrayal. Erin tried to be elegant in her response. She didn't get back at the fans who, at times, required changes or disputed her decisions. Instead, she spoke the reasons behind her decision. The budget limits, the historical details, the family's own wishes. At times, it was a practical decision, rather than a decision of preference that led to the choice where the figure was $10,000. We're not decorating for ourselves, she reminded the audience. We're not only giving houses but lives, too. The noise, however, could stop the noise eventually stop. The more the Hometown project prospered, the more it gained the attachment of a small but vociferous group of critics who treated every project as a target. However, Fame altered the living conditions of Erin in ways that she had never thought about. Laurel, Mississippi, was previously a quiet and hidden place. They turned into a tourist spot. People unknown to them began coming to their house, taking pictures, or knocking on the door asking for their permission to take pictures. Although fans were well-meaning, Erin still felt the loss of privacy very acutely. Thus, she ceased revealing any aspect of her children's lives on the internet. She would erase the number plates from her photos, conceal the places, and be very selective about what part of her life the public could see. Her smile was just a mask that she learned to place invisible boundaries behind. Fame had offered her a platform, but also deprived her of her tranquility. Nevertheless, Erin would not allow the negative emotions to slay her. She transformed the disapproval into a calling, thus becoming an advocate for kindness in the digital world. Erin told her supporters that just like people, beauty doesn't have to be flawless to be lovely. However, every kindly word required much energy. Each time there was a new episode, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had to live up to the expectations she had never created in the first place. Erin Napier was no longer just constructing houses. She was at the same time struggling to keep the balance between the two extremes, inspiration and invasion. And that burden was manifested. But what happens when the criticism doesn't stop? When every creative choice becomes a battlefield and every small mistake turns into a headline? For Erin, that moment came next. Backlash, budgets, and broken hearts. What makes Hometown so different from other renovation shows is its honesty. It doesn't chase drama. It celebrates care, craftsmanship, and community. But that same authenticity can make it a target. Erin Napier learned early on that not everyone watching wanted to understand the work. Many just wanted something to criticize. It started with little things, color choices, furniture placement, and design details people didn't agree with. What Erin saw as storytelling through design, others reduced to mistakes. One of the biggest controversies came during Hometown Takeover in Sebring, Florida, when Erin used a green and white striped awning for one of the renovated houses. It was a classic look, inspired by the town's historic architecture. But online critics didn't see heritage, they saw bad taste. Some claimed it looked cheap. Others said it didn't match the home's character. What no one knew was that the design wasn't about style at all. It was about budget and authenticity. Erin had chosen the awning to preserve part of the original look, and because the project couldn't afford a wooden arch, some demanded. Then, the issue of the flooring arose. In a different residence, Erin and Ben opted for the original kitchen floors, no matter how badly they were being scuffed and uneven. To Erin, those flaws were the past, a tale told by families that had lived there for decades. However, when the show was released, some fans went online and complained very loudly. Why was the floor not changed? The whole design is destroyed. They were not working hard enough. They failed to see the truth. Sometimes a floor does not only serve as a floor, it is a bridge to the history that is worth keeping. Erin felt the disagreement as nothing but a minor irritant. Cruelty, however, was very painful. In the past, she has referred to the situation as being able to cope with people having different views, but not the rudeness that usually comes with them. Some of the comments were not about the houses. They were of a more personal nature. The audience was criticizing her beauty, her way of talking, and even her family. Once, Erin remarked that reading those comments was like a bruise that doesn't heal. The show's purpose had always been about spreading kindness, about lifting people. To see this kindness treated with scorn was devastating for her. Nonetheless, Erin kept on making art. She was aware that not everybody would be satisfied, and she would not give away her originality just to get approval. Once she declared, "We are not producing dream houses, we are producing real houses." Every decision made on Hometown was for a good cause: the family's budget, the time limitation of filming, or the need to keep the structure's history. However, the audience gets only a 42-minute view of the final beauty, and not the months of decisions, debates, and limitations that formed it, as television does not depict everything. The reaction from the audience was hard to bear, but at the same time, it made things clearer. Erin realized that she was not supposed to make the internet happy. Her job was to create significant homes. Her focus shifted from trends to truth. "If it is honest," she said, "then it is beautiful." This was her silent revolution, making beauty for the people whom she could see, not for the critics behind the screen. But while online words sting, the battles at home can cut even deeper. And soon, the challenges wouldn't be about color choices or design trends, but about holding her family together when health and exhaustion collided. Home, health, and holding it together. For all their calm smiles and warm Southern grace, life for Erin and Ben Napier has never been easy behind the cameras. Renovating homes for national television may look simple, but their days are long, physical, and mentally draining. Between filming, running businesses, and raising 2 daughters, exhaustion has become a familiar guest in their household. Yet the hardest battles have always been the ones no camera could capture, the ones fought quietly in hospitals and sleepless nights. In 2023, Ben Napier underwent major shoulder surgery. Doctors repaired a torn rotator cuff, removed a bone spur, and fixed cartilage damage that had built up over years of heavy lifting on set. The man fans knew as the strong, cheerful craftsman suddenly couldn't lift his own toolbox. Recovery was slow and painful. He couldn't work for months and had to sit out many parts of the renovation process, something that went against everything in his nature. Watching from the sidelines while others did the work broke his heart. "It's not easy being still when you've spent your life building things," Ben admitted. The injury was a real test for Erin, too. She took care of him and their girls, Helen and May, while doing much of the work herself. It brought back to her the lesson she had learned long ago, that strength is not only about suffering, it is also about being humble. The stress was still there, however. The Napiers got so exhausted that they were practically running on fumes while trying to manage filming schedules, store operations, and family life all at once. Among the concerns was not only Ben's health, but also the fact that years of hard work had caused him to suffer from chronic ankle pain that was a result of an old basketball injury. In 2025, Erin announced that Ben was undergoing a new treatment called stem wave therapy to assist in the healing process. At the same time, Erin was tackling her own problems. Her anxiety, which had been subdued, came back with a vengeance because of the pressure caused by the need to be both a mother and a celebrity. She has likened it to a storm that doesn't always show up on radar. With her constant presence at the hospital, business meetings, and filming deadlines coexisting, she started feeling the emotional toll of her multitasking. Her biggest fear was that her daughters would remember her as the tired mother when they grew up, and this was a heavy burden on her heart. The family's sicknesses and healing processes transformed their way of living. They took a holistic approach to life, guarded among their loved ones. Their country house in Laurel became a sanctuary, a place where they could breathe again. They were able to stop and rest without feeling guilty, being there, enjoying silence, and having it all to themselves. They indulged in lazy mornings, prepared, and played with their little ones, looking at sunsets rather than screens. It wasn't the life of luxury, but it was down to earth. Even when filming resumed, Erin and Ben carried that tranquility with them. They had a different approach in their work. There was more consciousness, more openness, and more tenderness. They realized that fame was passing, but family was forever. But just when they seemed to find balance, another test arrived, one that would push them beyond the world of home renovation and into a mission they never expected to lead, choosing peace over praise. By the time Hometown became one of HGTV's biggest hits, Erin and Ben Napier had achieved what many dream of: fame, fortune, and a platform that reached millions. Yet for them, success came with a quiet realization. Being admired by the world meant little if they lost peace at home. Fame had opened doors, but also exposed every part of their lives to constant judgment. At some point, Erin decided that her happiness would no longer be defined by ratings or applause. She began to pull back from the noise. Social media, once a space to share designs and ideas, became a double-edged sword. For every fan celebrating their work, critics were dissecting it. Erin started setting firm boundaries: fewer personal posts, less public sharing, and a sharper focus on real life rather than digital life. She said, "I don't owe strangers access to my heart." That line became a personal rule. Privacy wasn't about hiding, it was about healing. Ben agreed. Together, they made decisions that prioritized family over fame. They built their country house to be a refuge, a place where cameras weren't welcome, and time moved more slowly. Their daughters, Helen and May, could grow up with grass under their feet and quiet nights under open skies. Erin often said she wanted her girls to remember a mother who was present, not perfect. "I want them to see me laughing more than scrolling," she once admitted. The bigger their impact, the farther they could have gone. more seasons, more deals, more glare. They opted, however, to decline the projects that didn't fit their criteria of ethics and morals. The launching of their nonprofit Osprey in 2023 was not about getting their brand bigger. It was about child protection. The entity, named Old School Parents Raising Engaged Youth, advocates for restricted access to social media for children. Erin and Ben were aware of the negative impact of internet pressure and were determined to assist other families who preferred being present rather than performing. The initiative stirred controversy, but for Napier, it was a signal that it was important. The artists indulged more in the aspect of community, which was the original thing that gave their work its purpose. Laurel, Mississippi, was the center of every renovation and every business decision. They just stuck to their mission of rebuilding small towns and pulling people's attention back to the fact that simplicity still holds great power. As much as one might think their softness is an indication of their weakness, the fact remains that it takes bravery to decelerate, while the world around you expects nothing less than quickness. Erin Napier has voiced it that serenity does not imply having fewer tasks to do, but rather having the discernment of what is worthwhile doing. After all those surgeries, online skirmishes, and ceaseless deadlines, she and Ben realized that the actual renovation was their inner self, transforming turmoil into tranquility and victory into quietness. Erin Napier's greatest renovation isn't a craftsman or a cottage. It's a life rebuilt around grace, limits, and love. If this deeper look moved you, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us, what would you protect first, ambition or peace? When you're ready, watch the next video on your screen for more untold stories behind the shows we think we know.